Itsuki was your classic poor, cursed, unlucky pretty boy who worked morning and night like an inmate on a chain gang just to keep the lights on, because his parents, two total washouts, spent their days drinking and gambling like it was their actual profession. Then one day, everything changed when he met a beautiful, sweet, rich girl who was about to smother him in affection every single night. It all kicks off with Itsuki standing right in front of Kyu Academy, one of the top 3 schools in the country. This place is stacked with rich kids only, the kind of school that's churned out prime ministers and CEOs of massive companies. Suddenly, someone yells Hinako's name, and it snaps Itsuki's attention right into place. Hinako looks, as always, gorgeous. A total showstopper, everyone's eyes glued to her. Itsuki clocks pretty fast that she's basically school royalty. Hinako walks up and asks if something's wrong with him, and since nothing actually is, she just casually tells him to walk with her. He falls in line beside her immediately, and every student around them is left wondering who on earth this random guy is. This whole world was a million miles from Itsuki's reality, until yesterday. He'd been grinding under the blazing sun to survive, until his boss told him he could head home. It was his last day at that job, and the paycheck had already hit his account. He said his thanks and bolted straight home. Even though he's still in high school, Itsuki works day and night at a rotating cast of jobs because he's dirt poor, thanks to his parents who only know how to drink and gamble. And he has to cover his own tuition solo. It had always worked out fine, until one particular day. Itsuki got home and didn't even notice his parents were there. Figured they were asleep. That night, the two of them slipped out quietly. He noticed, sure, but assumed it was just another one of their bender nights, same as always. Then he found a note on the table. It said, "See ya." Itsuki laughed. What a weird thing for his parents to write. But that's when it hit him. He sprinted to check the bank book, and found nothing. This had to be a joke. His parents had cleaned out his entire savings and skipped town. Itsuki lost every last shred of hope right then and there. He left the house with about $2 in his pocket to scrounge up some food. That's when he crossed paths with a group of girls from the massive Kyu Academy, probably heading home from the entrance ceremony. The same ceremony he was supposed to attend the next day, but now definitely couldn't. The girls said their goodbyes and split off, each heading their own way. Itsuki made such an absurd mental comparison between their lives and his that it felt like they existed in 2 completely different universes. That's when he spotted a student ID card lying on the ground. It belonged to one of the girls. It was Hinako's. He called out to return it, and when she turned around with that stunning look on her face, Itsuki felt like he'd been yanked clean out of his own world. Out of nowhere, a black car rolled up, and 2 guys jumped out. They grabbed Hinako and tied her up. Itsuki tried to step in, but ended up getting snatched right along with her. When they arrived wherever they were taking them, Itsuki immediately warned the kidnappers that his parents wouldn't be able to pay a dime. The thug just told him to shut up. Nobody was even after him in the first place. The guy must have racked up some serious bad karma in a past life, because in one single day he got abandoned by his parents and kidnapped. The kidnappers were digging through info on Hinako. Turns out she's the heir to the Konohana family. There was basically no better target out there. Itsuki heard that and looked at Hinako like she was some modern-day princess, gorgeous and impossibly refined on top of it. Hinako got his attention to let him know she needed to use the bathroom. For Itsuki, this is a pretty terrifying situation to navigate, but, well, even a modern-day princess is still human, right? Things get worse when she makes it crystal clear she's about to have an accident right there if she doesn't go soon. Itsuki tells her to hold it a little longer, but Hinako insists she's going to wet herself completely. So he decides to dump this problem straight onto the kidnappers. They walk her to the bathroom and she comes back saying she feels so much lighter. Hinako turns out to be nothing like the person Itsuki pictured at first. Even the kidnapper turns to his boss and asks if this girl is actually rich, because she's acting so clumsy and awkward. She asks the kidnappers for tea and snacks. Like she hasn't even registered that she's been kidnapped. She's that clueless. The kidnapper hands her a water bottle, but Hinako insists on tea instead. He gets fed up and tells Itsuki to deal with her himself. Itsuki is not thrilled about this at all. Hinako spills the entire bottle trying to drink from it, claiming she's just not used to plastic bottles. Itsuki offers to help, but she hesitates, thinking he's trying to steal the bottle from her. He makes it very clear he has zero interest in stealing water, and even calls her a pain in the neck. In the end, he grabs the bottle, except there's a huge puddle on the floor now, so he tells Hinako to step back. She somehow manages to trip over absolutely nothing and faceplant on the ground. This time, even Itsuki can't help but laugh. Hinako gets up with a tiny scrape on her forehead. Nothing serious. The two start chatting a bit, and she asks why he got kidnapped too. It's because he just wanted to return her student ID. Hinako takes the card back, clicks it in her hand, and says help will show up eventually. She decides to take a nap and asks to use Itsuki's lap as a pillow, all whiny about it. He is not even remotely thrilled. This girl is just as clueless as she is gorgeous. Hinako lies down on his lap and leaves him totally flustered by gushing about how comfortable it is. She asks for a lullaby, except Itsuki doesn't know a single one. So she settles for asking for a funny story instead. One of the kidnappers is on the phone, clearly stressed out, while Itsuki just sits there marveling at how she can fall asleep in a situation like this. Somehow, though, it ends up calming him down too. The kidnapper throws something toward the two of them, yelling into the phone that if he doesn't get an answer right now, he's going to start hitting Hinako. Itsuki stands up, ready to shield her with his own body. Hinako asks why he'd even do that. The truth is, Itsuki doesn't have much left to lose. His future's already bleak no matter what happens, so he figures he might as well protect someone while he can. But all he actually says out loud is, "I don't know, not really sure." She tells him he's a good person, and that he smells like a futon that's been sitting out in the sun. Hard to tell if that's actually a compliment. Hinako mentions that, unlike every other caretaker she's ever had, Itsuki acts relaxed around her. The others were always way too formal. With him, she actually feels comfortable, and she likes that. The two properly introduce themselves. Hinako is basically cupping his face, about to say, "You're going to be my..." except the sentence never gets to finish. The rescue team crashes in. They tackle the kidnappers to the ground, and Itsuki too. Someone reports to the commander, Shizune, that they've caught a third kidnapper. Weird, since intel said there were only two. Hinako calls out to Shizune and explains that Itsuki isn't a criminal at all. Shizune is Hinako's caretaker. She apologizes for how long the rescue took. Apparently, it's Hinako's own responsibility to check in whenever she wants to go out. Annoying rule for her, sure, but the consequence of skipping it is getting kidnapped. Shizune says everything's ready for them to head home, but before that, Hinako points at Itsuki and flatly says, "I want him." Shizune naturally goes along with what Hinako wants and gets everything arranged. Shizune, Hinako, and Itsuki are now in the car, heading toward the Konohana estate. The caretaker can't help admiring how Hinako acts around this boy, but she's already figured out exactly what's going on. Shizune tells him he needs to talk to someone. That's exactly where they're headed. She checks her phone and mentions his background check just came back. She starts rattling off a bunch of information about his life, uncovering things he didn't even know himself. Itsuki is supposed to start his second year at Ryugu High tomorrow, except since he never paid tuition, he's not enrolled anymore. And there's more. Rent and utility bills are overdue too. He's about to lose his house on top of everything. The poor guy's situation just keeps sinking. Shizune offers him a job, working for Hinako. Itsuki panics. He doesn't want to become anyone's maid. Shizune clarifies that's not it. Maybe he'll be more of a butler. Except, that's not quite it either, apparently. She gives him one dead serious warning. If he does anything inappropriate with Hinako, she'll cut off a certain body part of his. In the end, what they actually want is for Itsuki to act as the girl's personal caretaker. They finally arrive at their destination, and Itsuki is floored. And this is just the Konohana family's vacation home. It already makes his old place look like a literal doghouse. The three of them walk while Shizune explains a few things. This is the main residence of the Konohana family's only daughter. Itsuki gets chills just looking at something so far removed from his own little world. Shizune tells him he'd better get used to it, because he's going to be seeing this every single day from now on. They step into a room to talk with Mr. Kagan, Hinako's father and president of the Konohana group. He notices the exact same thing Shizune already picked up on. He tells Itsuki that his daughter has genuinely gotten attached to him. The little goofball even fell asleep standing up. If she's already this attached to someone she just met, that's a clear sign he's the one meant to be the caretaker she's always needed. To explain what a caretaker actually is, Kagan needs to fill in more of Hinako's backstory. The lights dim, and some recordings start playing on a screen. It's footage from inside Kyu Academy. There, Hinako behaves flawlessly around everyone. In class, she comes across as brilliant. Itsuki gets more and more stunned, so much that he actually asks who that girl in the video even is. Shizune answers, "It's Hinako herself." Yes, the exact same one he's pointing at right now. Seems impossible. Kagan shows that his daughter is fully capable of playing the perfect lady when she's around other people. But as the video keeps rolling, she flat out refuses to go to her next class because all she wants to do is sleep. Kagan says that this, the one Itsuki actually met, is the real Hinako. She turns into this whenever she's not surrounded by a crowd. Total goofball mode. The girl shown on screen was Hinako's last caretaker. A few days ago, she was hospitalized with a stress ulcer and quit right after. The caretaker's job is to operate behind the scenes, making sure this goofy side of Hinako never gets exposed to the public. Kagan really wants Itsuki to take the job. As for pay, 20,000 yen a day, 3 meals, and housing included. He's floored by the number. Kagan, assuming that's too low, immediately bumps it up to 50,000. Except, no, Itsuki was actually expecting something closer to 8,000 a day. Kagan warns him the job is tougher than it looks. Hinako needs to play the perfect lady for the world because she wants to land the best possible marriage. On top of that, the Konohana group is dealing with everything from internal power struggles to pressure from rival companies. It's crucial that she marries well. The caretaker's job is to make sure she's flawless everywhere, from school events to high society functions, and to protect the Konohana brand's image. Itsuki picks his own salary, 20,000 yen, and he starts the very next day. Without a caretaker, Hinako can't even function inside her own house. Kagan gives him one final warning. If Itsuki does anything with his daughter, he's not cutting off any body parts. He's just going to kill Itsuki outright. Shizune leads Itsuki to his room. Everything's already set up, uniform included, hanging right in the closet. And it's not some servant's uniform. It's the actual Kyu Academy uniform. Lucky him. The two of them are even in the same year. Itsuki feels uneasy, way too far beneath everyone to attend a school like this. Shizune hands him his cover resume. It says he's the heir to an IT company. Nothing flashy enough to draw attention. He'll basically stay invisible. But there's still one issue. Can he actually keep up with the advanced coursework there? Shizune says it won't be too rough since his grades are excellent. He's a serious student. He's still nervous about it, and that's exactly why she's here. She's going to train him on his caretaker duties, starting with manuals and reference textbooks. Every single day, Itsuki will spend the time before dinner prepping for the next day's classes. And it's not just academics. He'll also be learning etiquette, manners, and self-defense. The self-defense part worries him a little, but not too much. Itsuki's built some serious strength from all that manual labor. After lessons wrap up, Shizune is going to put his skills to the test. The two square off, and she has Itsuki begging for his life. He's still got a lot to learn. After a completely insane day, he flops onto his bed to catch a break. Except something moves under the covers. It's Hinako, asleep in his bed. He nearly jumps out of his skin. She casually tells him her caretaker's bed is her bed too. Itsuki has no clue what to do, so he flips through the manual for guidance. That's when he gets a text from Yuri, his childhood friend. She texted earlier asking if they're walking to school together tomorrow. But with everything going haywire in his life, Itsuki totally forgot to reply. He tries to think of a way to explain and types, "Some stuff came up, and I won't be going to the same school anymore." Yuri's shocked and decides to just call him instead. Itsuki declines, says he's exhausted, and tells her they'll talk another time. Suddenly, Hinako pops up right behind him. She only wants to know who this girl is. He explains she's a childhood friend who goes to the same school. Hinako confiscates his phone to keep the peace and refuses to give it back. Itsuki asks for the phone back in this super formal tone, exactly the way the manual taught him. She hates it and tells him to just go back to being normal. Doesn't matter what Shizune told him to do. Itsuki drops the formal act and goes back to himself, and Hinako lights up. She says she's counting on him, leaving the poor guy totally red-faced. Right after that, she just crashes on the bed without another word. Hinako and Itsuki are heading to the academy with Shizune. The girl didn't even want to leave the house. All she wants is to sleep. 8 more hours, and then she can finally pass out in peace. Nobody can find out that Itsuki is Hinako's caretaker, let alone that he's living in her house, so Shizune drops them off some distance from the school. They have to be extremely careful. Itsuki keeps talking in that overly formal way, and Hinako asks Shizune to let him loosen up a bit. They agree to only do the casual version when it's just the two of them. Hinako is so bored, especially now that they're getting close to school, that she makes a request. She wants him to carry her. Shizune nearly loses it over something that ridiculous and politely explains that this kind of behavior isn't appropriate for a proper lady, but it's just that Itsuki smells really good. Shizune gets curious and even asks to smell him for future reference. Doubt that one's actually happening. When they get out of the car, Shizune hands Itsuki a bag, something to use whenever Hinako acts up, basically a secret weapon. The two say goodbye and walk the rest of the way to school together. Hinako still hasn't switched into her refined lady act, since there's no one nearby. It's like she's got a built-in sensor that detects when people are watching. Alright, focus, Itsuki. He's got a job to do, keeping Hinako's image intact. Right in front of him stands the massive Kyu Academy, ridiculously huge. Inside the classroom, Itsuki introduces himself as the new student. He heads to the seat the teacher points out, and along the way notices how chill everyone is. A real laid-back vibe. No applause, no bowing, totally different from his old school. It's math class, and the teacher introduces the material they'll be covering going forward. Itsuki is screwed. This is stuff from the end of junior year, and they're starting it at the beginning of sophomore year. By the end of class, he's already fried, and that was just the first period. Meanwhile, Hinako is surrounded by classmates asking for help with the material. In public, She's flawless. Some guy suddenly walks up to Itsuki, saying it's pretty bold of a newcomer not to greet him first. He starts demanding compensation, and Itsuki is scared out of his mind. A girl shows up and scolds the guy for scaring people for no reason. Turns out it's just their usual bit. The guy's name is Katsuya, she's Karen. Katsuya can tell just by looking that Itsuki's first class was brutal, totally normal for any transfer student. Karen explains some students here come from top-tier schools, but plenty are here purely because of family, like taking over the family business. Those are usually the normal people around campus. Itsuki remembers what Shizune told him. Stay formal, since being a company heir counts as normal at this school. He explains he's the heir to an IT company. Nothing huge. So yeah, he's just a normal person. Exactly what Katsuya and Karen already assumed. Students in the same boat tend to stick together for support. It's rough dropping into a school like this from a regular one. The two of them offer to help Itsuki out since they're normal people too. The kindness is enough to nearly bring the poor guy to tears. He thanks them, way too formally. Katsuya tells him to drop the formal thing. They're classmates after all. Itsuki explains it's just his family's policy, so there's not much he can do about it. Katsuya finally asks the question he's actually been dying to ask. So what's your deal with Hinako? The mood gets heavy. Feels like Itsuki's about to get thrown under the bus depending on his answer. He explains their parents had some kind of connection, so she was kind enough to walk him to school. Katsuya, still looking ready to stab him, asks if she's his fiancée or something. Itsuki denies it instantly. Katsuya visibly relaxes. Because Hinako is basically a full-on celebrity around here. Not only is she top of the class, she's a total knockout too. At lunch, Itsuki follows Hinako to a quiet, secluded spot where she always eats alone. Time to eat on a genuinely nice day. The lunchbox leaves Itsuki stunned. He's never seen food that fancy before. The cafeteria is even fancier, but since there's stuff Hinako doesn't like, she prefers bringing lunch from home. Itsuki asks what she doesn't like to eat, and she starts listing off basically every vegetable in existence. Hinako hates vegetables. She asks him to feed her. He's mortified at first, but calms down and does what she asked. Then she returns the favor by feeding him too. Itsuki is blown away by how good it tastes. Hinako smiles and says that as his owner, she has to feed him. Then she lowers her head and mentions it'd be a problem if he ever got tired of her. Itsuki takes the chance to ask why her last caretaker quit. Hinako doesn't know why. She just knows the caretaker only lasted 2 weeks. The one before that lasted 3. A month, tops, in that role. Itsuki tries to wrap his head around why anyone would walk away from a job with conditions this good. Free housing, meals, 20,000 yen a day, and enrollment at a school like this. Hinako asks, "What about me though?" He doesn't quite follow, so she rephrases, "Don't you want to marry someone rich?" Itsuki has no idea how to respond, but really all she wants is for him not to quit. After a bit, Hinako crashes on his lap. Normally this kind of moment would leave anyone giddy, but for some reason, it just makes Itsuki feel calm. Suddenly his phone rings. It's Shizune. She asks if Hinako's next to him. Itsuki confirms she is, asleep. Shizune says that until he settles into the job, she's going to keep calling to check in during lunch like this. She asks if he's talked to anyone else, and he mentions Karen and Katsuya. Shizune flips through a notebook of student info and tells him which company Karen's family runs. Itsuki is floored. It's one of the top 5 electronics retailers in the country, and she had the nerve to call herself normal. Same deal with Katsuya. His family runs a hugely wealthy company too. Itsuki feels betrayed. Another class goes by, and Hinako's as impressive as ever. Itsuki figures things are fine since she's always surrounded by people. Shizune calls again. Turns out Hinako's student ID probably fell somewhere. There's a big gap between where her tracker chip is and where the one attached to the ID actually is. Based on that, Itsuki guesses it's probably in the bathroom. Shizune tells him to figure out a way to get it back. But how the heck is he supposed to pull that off? Out of nowhere, a girl walks up and asks if he's having trouble with something. Gorgeous, with curly golden hair, she introduces herself as Mirai, the only daughter of the Tenoji group. Itsuki just responds with a flat, "I see." This absolutely infuriates Mirai, who asks if he's ever even heard of the Tenoji group. Since he has zero clue, he bows and apologizes for his ignorance. She's beyond bothered. This is way more than just ignorance. The Tenoji group started in mining and is now the biggest non-ferrous metals manufacturer in Japan. Their scale rivals the Konohana group. Just from his reaction, Mirai can tell he's familiar with the Konohana name, and he confirms it. She practically shakes with resentment. Her rivalry with Hinako runs deep because her own reputation never manages to spread out from under Hinako's shadow. Setting her frustration aside, she asks if he's dealing with some kind of problem. He explains a student ID got left behind in the girls' bathroom. Mirai hands it over, all huffy, and demands to know how the heck a guy even knew it was in there. Itsuki explains the owner asked him to look, so he figured that's where it'd be. He can't reveal whose ID it is, since Mirai clearly despises Hinako. She asks if that doesn't just make him a servant and insists that's not okay. Since he attends this school, he's destined to be a leader someday. If he keeps letting himself get used like this, his future doesn't look very bright. Itsuki says he'll be more careful. Mirai still doesn't see an ounce of confidence in him and tells him to respond with more backbone, which he immediately does. Lastly, she tells him to fix his posture, because that's where real self-confidence comes from. She struts off proudly, telling him to look for this beautiful golden hair next time he's in trouble. Without thinking, Itsuki blurts out, "Wait, are you even allowed to dye your hair at this school?" He genuinely believes that hair is dyed. Mirai looks offended and storms off in a huff, swearing on her life that she never dyed her hair, which now everyone can be 100% sure. It's definitely dyed. After one more class, Karen and Katsuya invite Itsuki to a welcome party. Unfortunately, he can't make it today. He needs to get home as soon as possible. Rain check then. Itsuki goes to find Hinako, who's at the pond feeding the fish. He tells her they need to go, but she flat out refuses. Wild. This is the same girl who was dying to get home earlier. Itsuki tries to physically drag her away, but this girl's got some seriously stubborn resistance. Then he remembers the secret weapon Shizune handed him earlier, a bag of chips. Hinako is obsessed with them, and she'll only hand it over if she's willing to leave. It's a temptation she can't possibly resist. Shizune goes to pick up Hinako, then Itsuki, in a separate spot. The first day wiped him out, but things stayed just as tough back home. Prep lessons, etiquette training, self-defense drills. When training wraps up, with Itsuki nearly losing his life in the process, Shizune remarks that he's picking things up shockingly fast. He takes the chance to ask, why has none of her past caretakers lasted more than a month? Shizune explains they were all personally hired by Mr. Kagan, and Hinako never managed to build any trust with them, probably because she found them all way too rigid. This is the first time they've hired someone completely ordinary, with zero ties to the Konohana family. Itsuki heads out exhausted, wondering if he can survive the days ahead, since even day one was this draining. He finds Hinako, who doesn't even get close before catching a whiff of his sweat. Time for a bath, apparently. She grabs his hand and drags him to her princess-style bedroom, and then straight to the bathroom. She starts stripping down, asking if they can bathe together. The two of them get into the tub, and somehow there's a swimsuit already laid out for Itsuki too. The poor guy has to make sure he doesn't look at her. No explanation needed there. To distract himself, he flips through the classmate profiles Shizune gave him. Itsuki asks if she's close with anyone in class. Hinako says no. Even with a crowd of people always around her, none of them are actual friends. He asks if she doesn't want real friends. She smiles and says that for her, having him is already enough. He gets totally flustered. Suddenly, she sits up, turns her back to him, and asks him to wash her hair. Itsuki tries to bail, but ends up talked into it. Hinako tells him she picked him as her caretaker because she likes the way he takes care of her, even if he always assumes he never had a choice in the matter. This catches Itsuki off guard. Honestly, it makes him happy thinking she trusts him. She stands up wanting to take off her swimsuit top, saying it's bothering her, and it's not even that great to wear one in the bath anyway. She strikes a slightly questionable pose and admits she only wore it because Shizune insisted. Itsuki turns away, completely flustered, and suddenly realizes something about what she just said. She told Shizune she was bathing with him, and that's when he finally clocks the terrifying, murderous glare lurking right behind the door. Bath time's over, and Shizune pulls him aside for a talk. She says she's been watching the entire time, worried out of her mind, but she admits he did a good job, and she's already left a fresh change of clothes in the locker room. She also hands him a little bottle of anti-arousal medication, just in case he ever starts feeling attracted to Hinako. Little white lie from Shizune. It's actually just a vitamin supplement. Day 2 of school. Itsuki messes something up right off the bat and ends up sprinting out the door after realizing he forgot the one thing he needed, his actual shoes. He finally finds them, but he's still rushing so he doesn't show up late. He ends up crashing into a girl, and the two of them instantly recognize each other. Itsuki tries to play it off and slip away, but she's not having it. "Aren't you Itsuki?" The poor guy doesn't even know how to lie his way out of it. The girl runs straight at him, dead certain he's the real Itsuki, and tackles him into a hug, sending them both to the ground, bawling on top of him, saying she missed him so much. After that, Itsuki watches, alongside Karen, as this girl plays tennis. Her name's Narika, and she's the best on the team. Famous, not on Hinako's level obviously, but still one of the school's top standout beauties. Except her most defining trait is a certain hostility she seems to radiate toward people. It's genuinely hard to make friends with Narika. Karen mentions there are rumors going around that her family has ties to the Yakuza and all that. Itsuki remembers what Mr. Kagan told him. After digging into his background, they found out there's a girl from the Miyakojima family enrolled at Kyu Academy. Since there shouldn't be any deep connection between them, it wasn't cause for major concern. But Kagan still told him to avoid unnecessary contact. Back to the reunion moment. Narika is crying like a little kid after running into her old friend. It all started years ago, back when they were only 10. Itsuki's parents actually got along fine, despite both being total disasters. But one day, a fight nearly ended in divorce. His mom left home and took him, along with her, to live with her late mother's family, the Miyakojima household. Later, Itsuki found out his grandmother had actually been disowned by that family, but his mom refused to leave anyway. Wandering around the house one day, Itsuki ran into Narika for the first time, training. She noticed little Itsuki standing there and asked who he was. He introduced himself, said he was staying there. Narika made it crystal clear she hates weak people. She'd already heard rumors that his family was a bunch of losers mooching off everyone. So she decided to give Itsuki a job. From that day on, he'd be her personal servant. After that, the two of them were together almost constantly. She'd cry, begging for his help whenever she saw a beetle, cry in his arms whenever the adults scolded her. He genuinely took care of her. Because of that, Narika started seeing Itsuki as way stronger than herself. She wanted to be brave, to become the strongest woman in the Miyakojima family. She told him about her fear of going outside alone. Her own family had convinced her the outside world was dangerous. It was honestly frustrating watching other little girls walk around on their own, feeling weak in comparison, until Itsuki reached out his hand and invited her to walk around outside together. That day, everything felt incredible to Narika. The best day ever, finally feeling truly free. From then on, they started sneaking out together every single day. Except eventually, people found out about their little adventures. And for putting Narika in danger, Itsuki and his mom got banned from the Miyakojima family. That day, Narika watched her best friendship get ripped away from her life, instantly. Today, the two of them have finally reunited. Itsuki tells her to calm down, except now she can't even walk anymore. She's so happy she hurt her hip without even noticing. The two of them head to the nurse's office. Narika's fine. She just needs some rest to feel better. Itsuki's already saying goodbye to head back to class, but she has a hard time letting him go. Doesn't want to be alone. He gives in. Not much choice, really. Narika thanks him for dragging her outside back when they were kids. If it wasn't for that, she'd still feel like a total coward. Well, let's say she hasn't fully shaken the coward thing, but she's making progress. She admits she still doesn't have a knack for making friends. Everything people assume about her is one giant misunderstanding. It's because the Miyakojima family puts huge emphasis on the spirit of martial arts, and she's been trained in it since she was a kid. Because of that tradition, the family's earned a reputation as some kind of fighting clan. Whenever she's around people, the nerves make her face tense up and end up scaring everyone off, which is how she got labeled a delinquent, a Yakuza kid, you name it. She begs Itsuki once again for his help. Shizune calls, and he steps away to answer. She asks where he is, and Itsuki says he's at the nurse's office because a classmate fainted and he went to help. Shizune gets worried, since his location doesn't match up with Hinako's, and tells him to get back to class fast. Helping others is great, but he can't slack on his caretaker duties. He goes back to talk to Narika, who asks how he ended up at this school. Itsuki says it's a long story, and that he needs to go. She tells him to wait, asks if he's going to vanish on her again. He turns around, smiles, and tells her not to worry. They'll see each other again. Narika lights up, hoping that's true, and asks for a head pat. Just like old times, he does it. The door swings open. It's Hinako, demanding to know what the two of them are doing. They both freeze. She says she left class because she started feeling sick, but she still wants an answer to her question. So what exactly are you two doing here? Itsuki explains he found Narika collapsed in the hallway and brought her to the nurse. Hinako asks if she hit her head, since she caught him petting her. Hinako's already seeing red. Narika starts explaining. They've known each other since childhood. Hinako does not like that. She continues. He even lived at her house and everything. Hinako hates it. Now she says Itsuki used to take care of her. Hinako despises it. Narika invites him to come back and live with her, asks if they can go back to how things used to be. Hinako answers on his behalf, proudly announcing that he's working at her house. Itsuki tries to figure out why she just blurted out a secret like that. Narika's completely thrown off. This is a bombshell. He confirms he's her daily personal care assistant. Narika, hurt, tells Hinako that's not fair. Hinako replies that she has no clue what happened in the past, but right now, Itsuki lives at her house. End of story. Since Narika's clearly fine now, she calls him back to class. After all, she's recovered too. The two of them leave the nurse's office. Truth is, Hinako was never actually feeling sick. She just went looking for Itsuki. He apologizes for making her worry and asks why she said that stuff to Narika, since their whole arrangement was supposed to be a secret. Hinako admits it was just to needle Narika a little. Itsuki wonders if that's jealousy. But honestly, he can't believe someone as clueless as Hinako would actually feel jealous over him. She asks, "Whose caretaker are you?" He answers, "Yours." Hinako's satisfied, all good now. Then she remembers they're about to get scolded by Shizune, and Itsuki panics, worried he's about to get fired. They're already heading home. Shizune says Itsuki isn't getting let go. Hinako's just as much to blame here. She already knew Narika was his relative, but had no idea they actually knew each other personally. She's going to come up with an excuse for him to give the girl and smooth over the whole mess. Shizune then turns to Hinako and asks why she was clinging to him like a koala for that long. Hinako just asks Itsuki to pat her head, and he does. The next day, everyone's gathered for tea, a welcome celebration. Itsuki's never done a formal tea thing in his life, let alone with people this high profile. It all started that morning, when Karen and Katsuya invited him to a get-together after class. This time he actually asked Shizune for permission and she said yes, said he could bring whoever he wanted. At lunch, Hinako announces she's coming too. She calls Shizune to ask permission, and Shizune says yes, purely because Itsuki's going to be there. Afterward, he goes to find Narika. Since she wants to make friends, this is the perfect opportunity. The two step outside to talk. She says she hasn't forgiven the betrayal. She really did want to move back in with him. The words slip out before she can stop them, and she turns bright red with embarrassment. Itsuki repeats the cover story Shizune told him to use, says he was adopted, and his adoptive father runs a company that's friendly with the Konohana group. Thanks to that connection, he gets etiquette lessons at their house. Lastly, he tells her she can't share this with anyone. After all that explaining, he invites her to the tea gathering. She's overjoyed. Of course she's coming. After that, Itsuki sprints through the halls trying not to be late. He runs into Mireille, who's already heard about his connection to Hinako. Itsuki asks if she dislikes her. Mireille, intrigued, says she wouldn't exactly call it dislike. It's more that Hinako keeps overshadowing her in looks and academics. At least, that's how things play out in Mireille's head. She keeps rambling on, making it very clear just how bothered she is by the whole thing. Itsuki invites her to the tea gathering after class. At tea time, all three beauty queens he invited are gathered together. Karen and Katsuya are struggling to wrap their heads around how something like this happened in just a few days of Itsuki being at the school. Well, it just did. Everyone introduces themselves. Narika's the only one who's a complete nervous wreck. She even trips over her words, poor thing. Itsuki tells her she doesn't need to be so nervous, and she explains their childhood connection. He takes the opportunity to shut down all those rumors about her. Really, Narika just struggles with conversation and that's it. She tears up again, but now everyone's actually talking to her. What a relief. They chat about how everyone spends their free time. Hinako says she spends hers snacking and studying. Mireille corrects Itsuki's posture again. Katsuya asks what regular schools are like since the customs are so different. What kind of customs does he even know? He brings up the 3-second rule and demonstrates it live. If food drops on the floor and you pick it up and eat it within 3 seconds, it's totally fine. Hinako tries the rule too, even after he specifically asks everyone not to copy it. Could have been a health disaster, but somehow everyone just ends up having fun with it anyway. By the end of the day, they all say their goodbyes. Mireille even tells Hinako it was fun despite everything, and tells Itsuki he looks way more attractive when he keeps his back straight. Narika has to walk home since her car's stuck in traffic, so Itsuki decides to walk her there himself, and even Hinako's fine with that. The two of them walk and chat about the day. It was amazing. This was the day that changed Narika's whole life. At the end of it all, Itsuki really is her hero, but she still can't help feeling like it's unfair, because deep down, what she really wants is to move back into his house again. Itsuki had been drilling table manners nonstop, and, real talk, he'd basically mastered everything he needed to already. And obviously, the mastermind behind that miracle was Shizune. But here's the catch. Until Itsuki hits an acceptable level of proper etiquette, he's not allowed to eat dinner with Hinako. So the poor girl's stuck eating solo in the dining hall, with nothing but a maid for company. Rough deal, right? Shizune drops the news that the plan going forward is to ramp up Itsuki's workload. Eventually, he's expected to be on Hinako duty from the second she wakes up until she's tucked in at night. That's a full-time grind. A few days later, Hinako and Itsuki are back to bathing together. Once that's done, it's Hinako's turn to hit the shower. And Shizune's already made herself crystal clear on this one. That shower is a no swimsuit zone. And yeah, obviously Itsuki is not allowed in there with her, unless he's got a death wish. Anyway, Itsuki asks Hinako to hand him the wash basin. She grabs it but fumbles the handoff and drops it on the floor. No worries though. She pulls out the 3-second rule she picked up from Itsuki himself, so technically it's fine. Hinako, for the record, thinks that rule is hilarious. She asks Itsuki what he and Narika were talking about when they got some alone time after tea. Itsuki looks away, cheeks going pink, and mumbles that they just talked about how fun the tea party was. Hinako gets right up in his space and says it straight up. He's her caretaker, and nobody else's. She's not letting him go anywhere. And then, out of nowhere, Hinako faints and collapses. She gets carried to bed, and Shizune calms everyone down. It's just a mild fever, nothing serious. Actually, back during that etiquette lesson, Shizune had already warned Itsuki that Hinako would get sick soon. If she hadn't given him the heads up, he probably would have panicked and passed out right along with her. Shizune knows exactly when these fevers hit because it's basically clockwork at this point. The fainting spells come from the daily stress of constantly performing, playing a role that's nothing like who she really is. And yeah, pretending to be someone completely different from yourself all the time? Of course that's gonna wear you down. Itsuki's freaking out and asks Shizune how she can stay so chill during something like this. She calmly tells him the fever clears up in 2 or 3 days. Nothing to stress over. But Itsuki's not buying it, not even a little. He blurts out that if performing causes her to collapse like this, then maybe Hinako just shouldn't have to act anymore. That's when Shizune drops the casual act and gets dead serious, telling Itsuki to check himself and remember his actual place. After that, she sends him off to rest, since all this drama could mess with his focus in class the next day. He's on the fence about whether he should even go to school with Hinako laid up, but Shizune assures him she's got Hinako covered, no excuse for him to skip. Next day at school, Itsuki's a total mess, spaced out and off his game. Katsuya notices and comes over to check in. Karen swings by too, pitching another tea hangout with the same crew as before. Katsuya points out that pulling together a squad this stacked isn't exactly easy. Karen agrees and notices Hinako's missing. Katsuya figures it's the usual. Hinako skips sometimes to handle family business stuff. Except that's just the cover story everyone made up to explain her absences. Itsuki's kind of bummed hearing that, because it means nobody actually knows to worry about her for real. He spends the whole day lost in thought. At lunch, he can't stop wondering, when Hinako's going through it, who's actually there for her? Who's got her back? When he gets home, he goes straight to Shizune, desperate for an update. Hinako's still on bed rest, but luckily the weekend's here, so she'll be back at school Monday. Itsuki asks about Kagen. Is he seriously not coming to check on his own daughter? Shizune explains that Lord Kagen's tied up running things at the main estate and can't just drop everything. And Hinako's mom, she passed away. There's clearly a lot Itsuki still doesn't know. After sitting with that for a bit, he asks if they can wrap up the lesson early that day. Shizune agrees, but only if they crank the pace up 50% faster than usual, and Itsuki has to keep up. So, it's speedrun study time. Itsuki's still not sure he's got what it takes to always be there for Hinako. But right after, he heads to her room to check on her. She's already awake, sits up, and thanks him for being there with her. Of course he'd show up. He's her caretaker. That makes her happy, and she asks him to hold her hand tight. After a bit, Hinako drifts back to sleep. Itsuki brushes her bangs back, telling her everything's okay. Then she starts calling out for her dad in her sleep. And that's when it clicks for Itsuki. What Hinako actually wants from a caretaker is that feeling of having a family. Itsuki gets it completely. He's caught himself wishing for a family too, always being so alone. Shizune shows up at the door, and since Hinako's out cold, asks to talk to Itsuki outside. There's something important she needs to tell him. Except Hinako's got a death grip on his hand. No way around it. Shizune's gonna have to say it right there in the room. The real reason Hinako's been performing this whole time is to find someone suitable to marry. But that's just the secondary reason. There's a much bigger goal at play, bringing in an adopted son-in-law for the Konohana family. Lord Kagen has an older son, Hinako's brother, Takuma. There's a massive age gap between the two, and since Takuma lives in a separate mansion, Hinako barely ever sees him. Normally, Takuma would be the heir, but Kagen doesn't trust him to actually run the Konohana group. So instead, an adopted son-in-law becomes head of the family, with Hinako leading the group alongside him. Hinako has to keep up a spotless image. One slip-up and everything could come crashing down. Itsuki fully gets the weight she's carrying now. He asks if that means he's just supposed to sit back and do nothing, since Shizune already told him yesterday to know his place. Exactly. All Itsuki needs to do is support Hinako while staying fully aware of where he stands. Shizune steps out. Now all that's left for Itsuki is to keep her company while she rests. Stay by her side, be present, and give her that family feeling she's been chasing. Monday finally rolls around, and just like Shizune promised, Hinako's back at school. At lunch, she offers Itsuki the vegetables off her plate, but he turns her down and tells her to quit being such a picky eater. Hinako only agrees to eat when Itsuki tells her he'll be happy seeing her healthy. Fair warning though, she had to force down something she genuinely hates. Then Shizune hits Itsuki with a new task. waking Hinako up. From now on, that's his job too. He heads to her room and tells her it's time to get up. She begs for 3 more hours, and pointing out she'll be late doesn't help. Being late is literally what she's going for right now. She finally sits up and clocks exactly who's responsible for wrecking her sleep. Itsuki. Once she sees it's him, she flops right back down like a rag doll and goes, "Carry me." He does it, tells her. Her clothes are laid out and says he'll wait outside while she changes. Except, nope. Hinako asks Itsuki to change her clothes for her. He spirals into full panic mode, but ends up going along with it, doing everything he can to keep it together. Shizune knocks to mention something she forgot to bring up. Sometimes Hinako says things half asleep that she doesn't fully mean, like asking for help changing. Shizune asks, dead serious, whether Itsuki took any of those requests literally, already fully prepared to remove a certain part of him permanently depending on the answer. Itsuki swears up and down he didn't take anything seriously, genuinely terrified for his life at this point. All right, off to school they go. There, Itsuki finds out exams are coming up. At this school, tests happen earlier than usual. Katsuya breaks it down and hands him some old exam questions. Itsuki skims them and realizes he's basically staring down a cliff. At lunch, he tells Hinako the exams are going to be brutal. She warns him that his grades better be decent, bomb it, and he can kiss the caretaker job goodbye. But don't worry, because she's going to personally tutor him. Might not look like it, but she's got the best grades out of the whole second-year class. After lunch, Karen and Katsuya come talk to Itsuki about the exams and study strategies. They ask how he used to study at his old school. Itsuki mentions pulling all-nighters sometimes, or doing group study sessions. The two get super curious about that idea, and he explains, it's basically just getting a group together to study as a team. They think it sounds so fun that they decide to do it themselves. Could be a good time, and it's the perfect excuse to pull in that same tea party crew. And then study session day arrives. Everybody's there. Katsuya mentions how lucky they are to have both of the second year's top students in one group, starting with Hinako. Itsuki asks who's number 2, and Mirei answers all casual, but with some very obvious salt about being ranked second. Karen's grades are solid too, but she brushes it off and changes the subject to Narika. Narika admits she's only good at history and PE, thanks to her family's traditions, and she crushes those subjects. Everything else? She's barely scraping by. Mirei suggests splitting the group into tutors and students. Mirei, Hinako, and Karen will teach since their grades are strong. Mirei asks Itsuki which subject he struggles with most, and without thinking, he blurts out, "Math!" Hinako immediately volunteers to tutor him, but Mirei jumps in and cuts her off. Karen gets paired with Narika, and Katsuya asks Hinako to help him. She agrees, sweet as can be, while absolutely grinding her heel into poor Itsuki's foot under the table. Turns out Hinako's been in a mood since yesterday, since she thought the study session was going to be just her and Itsuki. Now she's taking it out on his foot as payback. The session runs long, but Itsuki actually picks up a ton. Narika's hitting her limit though. It's way too much info for her brain to handle in one sitting. Karen suggests a break, and everyone's on board. Itsuki steps outside to stretch, and Mirei follows him out, wanting to talk. She asks, "Are you seriously the heir to some mid-sized company?" Itsuki's caught off guard and asks why she's even asking. Mirei explains, it's the table manners. He can pull off the basics, but it all looks kind of thrown together, like he learned it all recently and way too fast. At least that's how it looks to her. She wonders what could be driving him to work this hard, figuring the answer's probably buried somewhere in Itsuki's backstory. She says it's just curiosity, and almost lets something slip, but decides to hold back. The two head back to the group, who are somehow super hyped about something. Turns out they're talking about the party happening at Hinako's place, that annual spring get-together. Itsuki had no clue this was even a thing, but Mirei knows a ton about the party, since her dad always goes, and this time she's going too. Not as the daughter of the Konohana group's rivals, but as Hinako's friend. And everyone's invited. Hinako promises to send everyone their own invitation. Except Narika's not exactly thrilled. She's not really a party person, and being out in public like that is basically her nightmare. And just like that, exam time hits. 3 straight days of it. There are even some extra subjects other schools don't teach, like economics. The last day was rough for Itsuki, but he gave it everything he had. Back home, Hinako crashes in Itsuki's bed while he keeps grinding through his studying. Even after exams wrap up, he wants to keep the momentum going. But it's getting late, and Hinako needs to head to her own bed. She's already crashed in other people's beds enough for one lifetime, except she's not even tired. So Itsuki suggests going for a walk, somewhere Hinako really likes. She's got a favorite little spot on the estate, and that's exactly where she decides to take him. After getting lost a few times along the way, she finally finds the right path. Turns out it's a service entrance. Every once in a while, Hinako sneaks out through there to reach the garden. She and Itsuki slip out, both fully aware that getting caught means they're toast, but there's nobody around, so they're in the clear. With the coast clear, Itsuki pulls out a popsicle he'd been hiding and hands it to Hinako. Shizune can never find out about this. She takes a bite and is instantly obsessed with the flavor. The two just sit there for a while chatting. Hinako admits she feels better whenever Itsuki's around, and that for now, everything feels okay. She's realized something ever since he showed up. What's most comfortable isn't always what's best. Suddenly, the popsicle melts and drops on the ground. Itsuki has to scramble to stop Hinako from pulling the 3-second rule on it. But in the end, the two of them just crack up laughing together. They head back to the mansion feeling satisfied, and Shizune was there the whole time watching everything unfold. Finally, the day arrives for Itsuki to get ready for a big event, except he's having a massive struggle adjusting to that fancy suit. Shizune warns him, dead serious, that the piece he's wearing is from one of the finest Italian designer brands and costs a jaw-dropping 700,000 yen, so he'd better be extra careful with it. Obviously, that info leaves the guy pretty terrified, and he swears on the spot to be careful the whole time he's wearing it. Hinako's going to attend one of Keigen's business luncheons, and Itsuki got invited to tag along, purely for his own education, since Shizune wants him to get a taste of the high society vibe. She reminds him, tonight, they're dining with the president and a board member from Chikamoto Shipwrights, plus 2 board members from their business partner, Sea Japan United. Back when Hinako was 7, she and this same president already exchanged greetings at a social event once, so she needs to be on her absolute best behavior. Hinako, on the other hand, just thinks the whole thing sounds painfully boring, but Shizune insists and asks her to do her best anyway. When they finally arrive, Itsuki's kind of floored seeing the so-called small summer house, which is anything but small. Shizune explains that Hinako's going to enter through the front door and lunch will be served on the terrace, so that's where they'll wait. Before heading out, Hinako mentions she needs to go talk to strangers, and Itsuki flat out asks her not to make it sound so criminal. He's already bracing for her to say something else ridiculous next, but to his surprise, Hinako says she's actually going to try hard. He smiles at that and pats her head, telling her he won't be right by her side during the event, but he'll keep watching from a distance, and that once they get home, they'll be able to relax together for a bit. Hinako smiles and finally heads off, saying she wants more ice cream afterward. But the second she leaves, Itsuki catches the slip she just made, because Shizune immediately asks what, exactly, Hinako meant by that. Meanwhile, Hinako and her dad welcome the board president to their place. The man greets Kagen enthusiastically and mentions the whole idea of enjoying a meal outdoors, out in the countryside, was his. Seeing Hinako, he admits it's been a while, but he's pretty sure they've met before. Hinako confirms it. It was when she was 7, at a flower viewing party her dad brought her to, and that's how they got acquainted. The president looks genuinely pleased that she remembered and admits she's grown into quite the young lady. One of the board members mentions that a friend's daughter goes to Kyugwin and is apparently considered the picture-perfect young lady there. Hinako smiles and says she's honored to hear that, and Kagen decides to invite everyone to join him at the table. Outside, Shizune asks Itsuki what he makes of what he's seeing, now that lunch has started. Itsuki watches them closely and comments that their manners look completely natural, effortless even. Shizune explains that's exactly the mark of true good manners. The behavior isn't forced at all, but it still carries that subtle touch of grandeur that reinforces the courtesy being extended. By following this unspoken agreement, they build trust with each other. Etiquette is seen as less important these days than it used to be. But there are moments when it's absolutely crucial, especially for people leading organizations, who have to be extra careful with what they say. Good manners let people build trust through behavior instead of words. And that's exactly why breaking etiquette is considered a genuine social blunder. Just a few minutes into lunch, the board president can already tell Hinako lives up to her reputation, calm and composed as she is. He mentions she's probably got plenty of suitors already, but Kagen clarifies that, actually, they haven't had the pleasure of receiving any proposals yet. That catches the president a little off guard, and he reveals he happens to know someone with exactly that kind of interest. Kagen smiles, sensing he's getting closer to his goal, and calmly asks the president to elaborate. As he explains, Itsuki wonders what exactly they're talking about, because Hinako suddenly seems kind of checked out of the conversation. The family in question deals in international trade and jewelry and considers flawless etiquette non-negotiable in a wife. Kagen says the idea isn't bad at all and promises he'll give it careful thought. The president laughs and says he probably shouldn't get his hopes up too much, but Kagen clarifies it's actually the opposite, assuring him he'll give the matter his full consideration. One of the butlers then brings out dessert, and the president lights up seeing they served one of his favorites. He asks Kagen if he should pass along his interest to the man in question, and of course Kagen happily agrees, assuring him his daughter's talents are beyond question. The instant he finishes saying that, Hinako picks up a piece of dessert that accidentally fell on the table and pops it straight into her mouth without a second thought, citing the 3-second rule. Everyone at the table freezes. Hinako realizes too late what she just did, but there's nothing she can do to undo that slip now. The president watches her with obvious disappointment and comments that maybe he'd been misinformed after all. Shizune can't hear what they're saying, but deep down she knows it's not good and has no idea what's coming next. Knowing Kagen's personality the way she does, this is about as close to a catastrophe as she can imagine. When it's finally time for the president to leave, Kagen thanks him for coming. The president assures him he had a great time, since it's important every now and then to escape the daily grind. Still, before he leaves, he asks that they drop the whole marriage topic since his reputation is directly tied to the recommendations he makes. Kagen, with no other choice, agrees. The moment the president's gone, Kagen asks Shizune who exactly taught Hinako such deplorable behavior. Shizune hesitates, but before she can say anything, Itsuki steps in and confesses the truth, apologizing for being the one responsible. Kagen then says he'd always wondered whether a caretaker was really necessary, but now he knows. He should never have let her indulge in that kind of thing. Allowing a personality behind the mask is exactly what leads to situations like this. With that in mind, he orders Shizune to teach Hinako to maintain the facade even in private. Shizune argues that a demand like that would cause an immediate breakdown, but Kagen simply tells her to fix it, since it was exactly that kind of indulgence that created the problem in the first place. After all, it's not like she's actually sick, and being born into the Konohana family means she has an obligation to protect the family name. Itsuki's devastated just thinking about it, because it means the unmasked Hinako is going to disappear, for good. He tries to protest and apologizes again for ruining the dinner, insisting there has to be a better way to handle this. But Kagen makes it clear the fault isn't his. Hinako had already gone through caretaker after caretaker before, never able to keep one around for long. He'd already expected Itsuki to give up too, and figured his influence on her would ultimately turn out to be nothing. The fault isn't Itsuki's, it's his own, for allowing this in the first place, and Hinako's for letting herself be influenced so easily. Without another word, Kagen orders Shizune to hand over Itsuki's payment once they're back home, since Hinako no longer needs a caretaker, and his contract is officially terminated. Before he can even process what's happening, Itsuki is thrown out of the mansion with nothing but his belongings and his pay. Realizing he's unemployed yet again, Kagen informs him he included more than agreed in the payment. So if he's got nowhere to stay, at least he'll have a roof over his head for a while. They've also arranged the paperwork to withdraw him from school, so he can't go back there either. Itsuki just stands there in front of the mansion, still processing everything, trying to accept that the life he had there ended in a single instant. He almost throws the money away in a fit of frustration, but stops himself, remembering it's all he's got left. With no other option, he grabs his things and walks off, feeling like the whole thing felt like a dream from the start, and wishing, from the bottom of his heart, that it actually was one, because that would mean Hinako wasn't suffering right now. Back at the mansion, Hinako asks about Itsuki, and Shizune tells her he's already left. Hinako remarks that he lasted a whole month as her caretaker, which is actually pretty long. Shizune listens, trying to hide her own concern, and Hinako asks if they couldn't just hire Itsuki as a regular staff member, since she's heard they're short on gardeners around there. She even suggests he could be a cook or join the cleaning crew. There's plenty of work to do around that house after all. Shizune, though, decides to be honest with her and explains that Kagen simply doesn't want to keep him employed. Hinako can't hide how much that gets to her and says she wants to see him. Shizune advises her not to do anything that might upset Kagen any further. So Hinako asks, point blank, whose side is she on? Without missing a beat, Shizune answers that Kagen is her employer. But despite that, Hinako decides she's going to go find Itsuki on her own. Shizune simply says no, she's not doing that, and goes back to work, warning that just to be safe, she's going to post someone outside her bedroom door. Not caring about that one bit, Hinako grabs the curtains in her room the second Shizune walks out, declaring with total conviction that she's a woman of action. Meanwhile, Narika happens to run into Itsuki by chance while out for a walk, and seeing how down he looks, decides to stop and hear him out. After he tells her everything, Itsuki mentions they didn't even let him see Hinako before he left, and knowing how things are, she's probably going to end up even more restricted than before. Narika admits the Konohana family seems incredibly strict, considering all of this happened over one single slip-up. Itsuki says it's all his fault, because if he hadn't taught her that silly thing in the first place, none of it would have happened. He blames himself for everything, and says a commoner like him, who doesn't know the first thing about etiquette, never should have gotten close to Hinako to begin with. Narika suddenly cuts him off and insists that's not true at all. She reminds him that Hinako is who she is today precisely because he came into her life and changed her, and that she still remembers that day like it was yesterday. She never would have experienced any of that without him around, and never would have even thought about pursuing her own freedom away from her dad. Narika says she's more grateful to him than she could ever put into words, and she's sure Hinako feels exactly the same, because he taught her too all the joys the outside world has to offer. That's when it hits Itsuki. There are things that might seem small and silly to him, but could be genuinely precious to Hinako and Narika. Knowing that now, he thanks Narika and decides to head out, saying he's going to negotiate directly with the Konohana family. As he runs, he remembers the promise he made, that he'd be there for her and support her no matter what. That if her family, her classmates, or literally anyone else couldn't do that for her, then he'd be the one to do it, as her caretaker. Fired up with determination, Itsuki doesn't hesitate and takes down the security at the mansion's entrance. Putting everything he's learned in martial arts to use, he manages to scale the gates and sneak into the mansion, using every trick Shizune taught him to outrun security or anyone else who tries to stop him. As he makes his way through the mansion, he realizes just how much he's internalized from all their training together and feels a wave of gratitude towards Shizune for it. Itsuki's trying to get to the office on the top floor, but he suddenly stops running when he spots Hinako hanging out of her own bedroom window, gripping curtains she'd tied together herself. Without thinking, Itsuki leaps from the second floor and sprints straight for her, managing to catch her just in time right after she falls. Still completely rattled, he asks her what exactly she thought she was doing, and Hinako simply answers that she just wanted to see him. At that exact moment, some of the security staff start shouting that Hinako's been kidnapped again. So Itsuki takes off running without thinking about anything else. As night falls, he finally manages to lose them, and Hinako says she's got a proposal. She'll be his hostage, and that way he'll have leverage to convince her dad. Itsuki points out that sounds a lot more like extortion, but Hinako doesn't care one bit and tells him to go ahead and extort her. Then, since that's basically what's happening. Still, Itsuki knows something like that wouldn't actually solve the problem, so he just asks her to let him try talking to her dad himself, because he's sure he can pull it off. As they head back toward the mansion, they run into Shizune and realize they're completely surrounded. Shizune tells Itsuki he clearly has a natural talent for martial arts and admits he's improved a lot in such a short time. She makes it clear she can't let them go, but Hinako insists, begging her to let her stay with Itsuki, promising to keep up the act at all times and never let the mask slip again. After all, that's exactly what her dad wants, for her to maintain a perfect facade, everywhere, always. Shizune's taken aback by how far she's willing to go, but Itsuki tells Hinako she can't do that because he doesn't want her forcing herself like that. That's exactly why he wants to be with her, because he wants to be someone she can just be herself around. Itsuki asks her not to willingly sacrifice the very thing he's trying to protect. And in response, Hinako puts her hands on his face and agrees, saying she trusts him. Shizune interrupts the moment between them and warns Itsuki that this isn't going to end the way he's expecting. Right then, Kagen calls out for her, so she heads over to him, asking the two of them to wait exactly where they are. Itsuki asks her again whose side she's on, and once again, Shizune simply answers that Kagen is her employer. But this time, she adds with a smile that she's on Hinako's side. She then brings Kagen the RSVPs for the Konohana family's social gathering, since he'll be staying at that residence for a while, and she's arranged for all of the main residence's mail to be delivered there too. Kagen understands that perfectly, but asks about these 4 guests she's brought up. Shizune picks up the first envelope and says it's from Karen Asahi, heiress of Jace Holdings. Kagen cuts her off before she continues and points out that the Asahi and Taisho families were never invited, but they're valuable connections. He only knows the head of the Miyakima family in passing, but not long ago got a courtesy call saying he'd attend if his daughter came too. Kagen admits what surprises him most is that the Tanoji family's daughter is also attending. He's always found the rivalry between the two families tricky to navigate, but this could be a real opportunity to build trust with the Tanoji group. Kagen says what he really wants to know is why these 4 people agreed to show up. Shizune informs him then that they're Hinako's friends from school. That surprises him even more because Hinako's never invited anyone before, and suddenly she's making these kinds of connections. Shizune decides to offer a suggestion and points out that if he considers this change in Hinako's behavior a good thing, then getting rid of whoever inspired that change seems, at the very least, unwise. After all, they're talking about a shipbuilder he barely has contact with despite the partnership, and 4 major companies that could become incredibly valuable connections down the road. Kagen knows exactly what should take priority, so he asks Shizune to bring Itsuki back. Sometime later, the Konohana family's social gathering finally arrives, where Itsuki runs into Mirei, Karen, Kazuya, and Narika. Everyone's dressed to the nines for the occasion, but Narika is actually in full-blown panic mode and asks Itsuki for help the second she spots him, saying the whole high society atmosphere is scaring her completely stiff, like worst-case scenario levels of scared. Mirei tells her she shouldn't be so intimidated and invites her to go mingle together. Even though she's trying to help, That just terrifies Narika even more, and absolutely nobody tries to save her. Karen and Kazuya decide to go grab drinks, but before heading off, Itsuki mentions how sharp everyone looks in their dresses and suits. Later, he spots Kagan and goes over to thank him sincerely for all the hospitality they've shown them. Kagan takes him outside and says Hinako is a true genius, and he's not just talking about her grades. Her personality might have its issues, but she's got a natural head for business. So, despite everything, she's a worthy heir to the Konohana family. Kagan explains he wants a son-in-law to inherit the business, just for appearances, but the one he actually wants running things is Hinako. Even if it's hard for her right now, he knows her talent will bloom one day. After he walks off, Itsuki realizes he genuinely can't wrap his head around how Kagan's mind works, and knows there's nothing he can do about the Konohana family's future. Still, he wants to keep being Hinako's caretaker, and keep the promise he made that day. Hinako then walks over to him on the balcony, since her dad told her he'd be there. She thanks him for staying on as her caretaker, and admits she was really happy about what he said back then, so she's going to keep trusting him. In that exact moment, Itsuki realizes he might forget his actual role every now and then, but he doesn't dwell on it too much, noticing instead how tired she looks. Hinako admits she's exhausted from all the socializing and asks him to pat her head. Itsuki does it without a second thought. But for some reason, Hinako suddenly turns bright red and pulls away, clearly flustered. When Itsuki tries to get closer to check if she's okay, Hinako panics even harder and turns her back, insisting it's nothing. That catches him off guard a little, since he's never seen her this nervous before. But not even Hinako understands what's going on with herself. All she knows is that she feels weirdly strange. Every morning it was the same routine. Itsuki would show up to wake Hinako, and she'd grumble that she didn't want to go to school. But today something was off. He asked her to lift her chin for a sec so he could wipe the little bit of drool off her mouth. The moment those words hit her ears, she slapped both hands over her face and practically shouted that she'd clean it up herself, and he'd better not be staring. He just stood there, totally lost, no idea what was going on, but he kept doing his job and brought her uniform for her to change into. And this time, she straight up banished him from the room and made him wait outside. Later, the two of them were getting ready to head to the institute with Shizune, and she immediately asked Itsuki if something had happened between him and Hinako, since the girl had been saying she didn't want his help waking her up anymore. But Itsuki had zero clue what had gone down. He even started spiraling, wondering if he'd done something to make Hinako hate him. Shizune said she doubted that was it, but she'd keep an eye on the girl just in case. On the way to the institute, Itsuki couldn't stop glancing at Hinako, worried out of his mind. She'd been acting weird ever since that last party, and all he wanted was for her to go back to being the same old Hinako. Once they got to the institute, Itsuki called his friends over. They were in the middle of a crowd, and asked what was going on. Turned out it was the first time he'd seen this, the list of the top 50 students by grades. And of course, Hinako was ranked number 1. The girls around her were swarming to congratulate her, because honestly, Hinako's just that impressive. That's when Itsuki noticed Mirai right next to him, shaking with pure rage. Still, he decided to just roll with it and congratulated her on second place. Mirai snapped back that as long as that hateful name stayed at number 1, she'd never be satisfied. But deep down, you could tell she was a little pleased. The gap between her score and Hinako's had shrunk quite a bit, which only fired her up more to finally take down her rival for good. Except, much to her annoyance, Itsuki's name wasn't on the list at all. He'd probably landed at average or below. Mirai was livid because the guy had been getting personal coaching from her and still hadn't pulled it off. Itsuki tried to calm her down, saying he'd gotten way better at math thanks to her help. Mirai wasn't having it and told him to zip it immediately. She launched into full lecture mode, going full mom mode on him, and even complained about his terrible posture, which drove her up the wall. After venting it all out, Mirai cooled down and made him an offer. She invited him to spend a few hours together after class, promising to help him study. The two went off to talk somewhere quieter. Mirai admitted she'd never tutored anyone before, and right from the start, she realized it was actually good for her too, a way to get closer to Hinako. But why Itsuki specifically? Simple. In Mirai's circle of friends, nobody had grades as rough as his. Then she hit him with a direct question. "You feel out of place at this institute, don't you?" Itsuki's eyes went wide, and he sat there, thinking it over. At first, it had felt like he was living in a completely different world from everyone else there, and the feeling went way beyond just feeling inferior. But lately, he kept getting reminded of everything he was missing. He told her Mirai had a real gift for reading people. She brushed it off, a little embarrassed, saying it wasn't that big a deal. And again, she almost let something slip about herself, but held it back. Finally, Mirai said Itsuki would carry himself with a lot more dignity if he had unshakable confidence. Like hers. He figured there was no way he could ever be like her. He admired her too much for that to even seem possible. But Mireille assured him it wasn't impossible at all. She could tell just by watching how he carried himself. Thinking it over, she realized this whole arrangement was mostly benefiting her. So to make it up to Itsuki, she asked what he'd like to learn. He decided he wanted to learn proper manners from her. Later, he mentioned this to Shizune. If he picked up good manners from Mireille, he'd feel more worthy of being Hinako's caretaker. That was his real motivation. Shizune was totally on board, figuring Mireille might actually be better than her at teaching etiquette to the guy. She also used the moment to pass along a message from Lord Kagan. He wanted Itsuki to keep supporting Hinako and helping the Konohana group build stronger ties with other groups. It seemed like Lord Kagan was starting to trust Itsuki a little. As for the Mireille situation, Shizune took it upon herself to fill Hinako in on everything. Later, at bath time, Itsuki tried to win back Hinako's forgiveness with a popsicle. She'd been in a rotten mood ever since Shizune told her everything. But as usual, a little treat fixes almost anything. Hinako said that if it was for her own good, she'd go along with it, even if she didn't like it. Besides, she didn't want to be a burden on Itsuki. He said that was a relief to hear, especially since she'd been avoiding him so much lately. But it wasn't that Hinako was trying to pull away from him. Honestly, she couldn't even explain her own reasons yet. Itsuki figured he'd understand her feelings better with time, but even after a whole month, it was still tough going. Anyway, time to shampoo her hair. Itsuki asked about her swimsuit. Kind of odd, coming from someone who always complained about the heat. Hinako said it didn't matter and told him to hurry up with her hair. But then the swimsuit strap got in the way, so he asked if he could move it aside. The instant he touched it, she went rigid and leapt away like she'd been shocked. She even called him insensitive. All he wanted was to figure out what was going on in her head. The lessons with Mireille finally kicked off. First, they needed to set a goal. Hers was to beat Hinako on the next proficiency test, which was starting in a month, and Itsuki needed to at least crack the top 50. The poor guy was already panicking just hearing that. He asked why she had it out for Hinako like that. Mireille said it had nothing to do with who Hinako was as a person. The issue was that, as the daughter of the Tennoji family, she couldn't afford to fall behind any rival group. You'd think that'd be some kind of family rule, but nope. Mireille had put that pressure on herself. Itsuki asked if living like that wasn't exhausting. She said it never had been. It was for the Tennoji family, sure, but also something she genuinely wanted for herself. Now, time for etiquette lessons. Itsuki asked to start with table manners, citing personal reasons. The two of them stayed at the cafe until nightfall, getting into these lessons. Itsuki called Shizune to ask permission, and she agreed without even a second thought. Back home, he kept studying while Hinako lounged on his bed like always. Itsuki tried to send her back to her own room, but she refused, saying she was sleeping there that night. Then she asked for a head pat. He asked if she was sure, since last time she hadn't seemed to enjoy it at all. Except it wasn't that she hadn't liked it. She just couldn't put into words what she'd felt. Hinako flopped onto the bed and got her head pat, finally relaxed, and settled right down. It wasn't long before Itsuki crashed out cold. It was the first time she'd seen him asleep, and she took the chance to peek at the caretaker's manual. Inside was a note asking someone to pick up ice cream whenever possible and leave it in the freezer. Shizune showed up since it was time for Hinako to head back to her own room, and since Itsuki was completely out, she took Hinako back herself. Walking down the hallway, Hinako told Shizune she was happy Itsuki had come back as her caretaker, but she felt bad whenever she thought he only took care of her because it was his job. She even asked if he did all of it just because it was work. Shizune told her not to worry about that. Itsuki wasn't doing all this just for the paycheck, and if she waited a little longer, she'd understand. It was the first time Hinako had ever asked Shizune's opinion on something so personal. After leaving the room, Shizune got lost in thought, telling herself it was still way too early to start feeling like a mom. After a week of lessons with Mireille, they decided the next one would be at her place, since the cafe was closed that day. The moment Itsuki stepped out of the car, he felt that whole glamorous energy radiating off the mansion. Mireille explained that glamour and dignity were basically the Tennoji family's whole brand. Starting right there with the garden, designed to show off a jaw-dropping beauty even from the outside. Inside the mansion, Mireille was greeted by her own father. He already knew she was bringing a guest and was eager to meet Itsuki. The guy introduced himself, totally tense, and Mireille's dad introduced himself as Tennoji Masatsugu. He leaned in close to Itsuki and asked, point blank, what his relationship with his daughter actually was. Mireille practically shoved her hand in her own father's face to insist there was absolutely nothing inappropriate going on between the two of them. Well, since his daughter swore it, Masatsugu bought it. He found out Itsuki wanted to learn table manners and decided to join in himself. The guy was terrified. Out of nowhere, he was about to have a meal with the CEO of a whole conglomerate. Time passed, and the three of them finished eating. Masatsugu commented that Itsuki did pretty well. Nothing about his manners bothered him. Mireille asked her dad to be more critical, since there was still stuff to fix, like Itsuki's clumsy way of drinking soup. Masatsugu agreed the guy was tense, but figured that was natural, considering he was in his presence. Itsuki asked how to stop being so nervous. Masatsugu said nobody just stops being nervous from day one. Even he'd been like that when he was young, and he only got where he is now after going through a lot. Everyone's past actions end up backing them up when it counts, and there's nothing wrong with messing up along the way. Itsuki felt more confident hearing that, and Masatsugu really liked seeing that shift in him. Suddenly it started raining. Masatsugu invited Itsuki to spend the night at their place, and Mireille agreed right away. It'd be a disgrace to send a guest out into weather like that. Itsuki called Shizune, who said it was fine since there were no lessons the next day. The real problem was that Hinako definitely wasn't going to be thrilled about this. Itsuki wasn't even sure it would help her mood, but he made a request that left Shizune completely stunned. Itsuki headed to the room he'd be staying in, and Mireille told him there was a change of clothes in the closet. That way, he could enjoy a proper bath. She mentioned the tub was the pride of the whole house. When he got there, he was blown away by the size. Genuinely incredible, and the water felt amazing. Suddenly, a woman's voice started drifting in. He could make out the silhouette of a woman approaching, and Itsuki figured it had to be Mireille. Except it turned out to be her mother. Finding the whole situation hilarious, she introduced herself as Hanami, and she already knew exactly who Itsuki was. Hanami started off by thanking him for being such a good friend to her daughter. After a quick chat, he pointed out that this was the men's bath. Hanami was totally unfazed. Poor Itsuki, though, definitely was not. The commotion caught Mireille's attention from the women's bath next door. He tried to explain, but Hanami had already started talking, and that was enough to send Mireille into full panic mode. She ran into the men's bath to drag her mom out, and Itsuki had to whip his head away immediately. That's when Hanami stood up, revealing she'd been in a bikini the entire time, which explained why she was so relaxed about the whole thing. Now it was Mireille's turn to freak out, since she was standing there in nothing but a towel. Once everything settled down, she showed up with some tea she'd made for the two of them while Itsuki was still studying. He noticed her hair was styled differently, and Mireille caught him staring right away. He got a little flustered and ended up burning his tongue on the tea. After they both had a laugh, she thanked him. Ever since they'd met, her whole school life had gotten a lot more enjoyable thanks to these study sessions and cups of tea. On top of that, Mireille admitted she felt more motivated whenever she was around him, since Itsuki gave off more confidence than he even realized. And if he managed to score well on the proficiency test, she promised she'd come after him right after graduation to be her right-hand man. Itsuki said working with her would be a blast. Thanks to Mireille, he was learning everything in a way that felt way lighter, and working together would be amazing. Just thinking about that turned Mireille into a total blushing mess. Before heading out, she wanted to come up with a battle cry with Itsuki. She explained roughly how it should go, and he thought it was so cute. Until she revealed the battle cry was, "I'm going to take you down, Konohana Hinako." Itsuki just couldn't bring himself to shout that, but there was no escaping it either. He stood there, mortified, silently apologizing to Hinako in his head, even though she wasn't anywhere nearby. Morning came, and Itsuki headed back home. Mireille kept replaying every moment she'd had with him in her head, even placing a hand over her heart to admit, just to herself, that things would be a lot more peaceful if she had him by her side. That's when Masatsugu got suspicious about their relationship again. He took the opportunity to say his daughter needed a suitor, since plenty of guys with bad intentions would try to get close to her, and having a suitor would keep that kind of trouble away. Of course, it all depended on whether Mireille agreed, and she, thinking it might actually help the Tenoji family if she got engaged, didn't hesitate for a second. Mireille said yes, she'd take on a suitor. Itsuki finally made it home, and Shizune was already waiting for him right at the door. He started apologizing for not coming back the night before, but hold up, that's not even the issue. Shizune, dead serious, warns him he's about to catch the full force of Hinako's wrath, and she is not playing around. Itsuki's stomach dropped. And what about the request he'd made over the phone? Shizune had it all handled, as always. He headed to Hinako's room and asked to come in. She let him, obviously, all bundled up in her blanket, waiting to give Itsuki a proper welcome home. except every single word out of her mouth lands like a dagger straight to his chest. Poor guy is scared out of his mind, so he explains. He couldn't make it back because the weather flipped out of nowhere and a storm slammed the whole city. His only option was crashing at Mirei's place. Hinako says she totally gets it, and then, a beat later, thanks him, super sarcastically, for his heartfelt apology. The poor guy gets even more terrified. She tells him to come closer, and once he does, she starts sniffing him. But she does not like what she smells, or rather, what she doesn't. His scent just isn't there, and without it, she can't settle down. So she decides to dig a little deeper. Did he have dinner with Mirei? Did he shower at her place? And, most importantly, did he get in the bath with her? Itsuki confirms the first two, no problem. But when it's time to deny that last one, he freezes, and it all comes rushing back to him exactly what happened. Hinako clocks it instantly, just from his face. Something went down. He tries to explain himself, all jittery and stammering, but he's not convincing anybody. Hinako cuts straight to it. Is Itsuki Mirei's caretaker? He shoots that down immediately. He's her caretaker, Hinako's. She grabs his shirt tight and lays it out. If that's the case, then he needs to be on her side always. And even when Itsuki says he gets how she feels, Hinako fires back. No, he definitely does not. Shizune swoops in with perfect timing to call them for lunch. And off Hinako goes, still pouting, to get her food. While she waits for her plate, she's sulking hard, until Itsuki shows up out of nowhere asking to sit at the same table. The deal, remember, was that he could only eat with her once he'd nailed table manners. And now, after cramming through Mirei's lessons, he's decided to make his case straight to Shizune. This is the final exam. Shizune's about to judge everything he's learned with the harshest eye possible. The meal lands on the table, and Itsuki shows off the payoff of all that grinding. No looking like a total mess this time. Hinako's jaw drops at how flawless he is, and Shizune approves. No notes. From here on out, he's allowed to eat with Hinako whenever it works out. Hinako, finally relaxing, tells him to drop the formalities already. Shizune clarifies he won't always need the full etiquette routine, but he'd better stay sharp because every once in a while, Lord Kagan swings by this dining hall for his own meals. Hinako smiles and pats the spot right next to her for Itsuki to sit. And honestly, that smile alone was worth every second of the grind. The days off roll by. Itsuki's with Mirei, studying like usual, except this time he picks up on something off about her. She seems more run down, more listless, like she's straight out of battery. Still, she tries to mask it and act normal, or at least gives it her best shot. It was supposed to be etiquette lesson time, but Mirei and her dad have already decided Itsuki's got it locked down, not a single slip-up in sight. So they're calling for a break from lessons for now, time to breathe. Itsuki steps out for some fresh air and runs into Norika hanging around. She's cruising the institute pitching products from her own family's business, which runs a sporting goods manufacturing operation. She even fishes for compliments, completely shameless about it, and Itsuki, totally checked out, mutters a flat, "Yeah, that's cool," with zero enthusiasm. Norika asks what he's been up to, and he mentions the study sessions with Mirei, even suggests she should study too since this institute's exams are brutal. Norika agrees on the spot, secretly hoping to get invited along. But Itsuki, completely oblivious, just says his goodbyes and starts to walk off. That's when she can't take it anymore and stops him, blurting out that she wants in on the study sessions too. She lingers there, a little down, admitting she feels like a difficult person to deal with, especially since some of her classmates have been spreading that kind of talk about her. Itsuki gets how much that must sting, but reassures her it's nothing like that. He doesn't think she's difficult at all, not even a little, and he doubts Mirei sees her that way either. So he invites Norika to grab a bite, since studying and etiquette drills are done for the day. Norika practically tears up, genuinely. A few real tears slip out. Over some really good tea, Norika finds out Itsuki spent the night at Mirei's place, and kind of loses it. This guy is unreal, somehow landing this level of closeness with the most powerful girls at school. She even wonders what his thing with Hinako must be like, given how tight he seems to be with Mirei too. Itsuki, watching all this, compliments Norika's table manners. She practically snaps at him. He wasn't supposed to act surprised about that. The whole exchange cracks Mirei up. It's nice seeing friends goof around like this. But Itsuki notices it again, that weird tension hanging in the air. He can't shake the feeling something's off, so he tries gently to make Mirei feel safe enough to open up about whatever's going on. That's when she drops her head and tells them she got a marriage proposal. She'd always known this day would come, being a Tennoji, but even so, it hit completely out of nowhere, and she's wrecked on the inside. Norika points out that's just the fate of heirs to big conglomerates and companies. Nobody's proposed to her yet, but people always say marriage is coming for her sooner or later too. She gets flustered and admits she'd rather marry for love. She's not accepting any proposal, full stop. And it's not just her. Her parents aren't thrilled about the idea either. The family's brought it up before but always backs off, saying it's still too early for her. Mirai asks what Itsuki thinks about all this. He admits he doesn't really understand this world, but promises he'll support her, as long as it's something good for her. Mirai thanks them both for listening. She feels way better now, and the two of them promise, if the marriage really does happen, they still hope they can hang out like this together. Mirai heads home, and the whole way back her mind won't quiet down. If the arranged marriage really goes through, everything changes. She'd hoped to hear a little more from Itsuki, especially after everything he said to her. She presses a hand to her chest, trying to sort out her own feelings, a little lost. The next day, Mirai manages to book the sports gym just for her and Itsuki. Starting today, dance lessons. Even he's caught off guard. He doesn't know the first thing about dancing, basically a walking disaster in that department. Mirai explains that an interest in ballroom dance matters, and it'll help his posture too. She tells him to start moving and get closer. He shuffles in with a few timid steps, but he needs to close the gap way more. She shows him exactly where each hand goes and corrects his posture on the spot. This is the basic frame known as the hold. Now the two of them are going to start dancing, nice and easy. Itsuki wonders how he's supposed to pull this off knowing nothing about dance. And Mirai drops the classic line, "Experience is the best teacher." They start counting the beat under their breath. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And honestly, it was fun. Itsuki's actually pretty good at this. Mirai notes he's got solid body awareness. Riding the high, they decide to run it back. This time, as Itsuki moves into the hold, he ends up looking in the wrong direction and has to yank his gaze away fast. Mirai scolds him. He's supposed to look straight at her. Eye contact and facial expression matter just as much as the footwork. She turns his face back by force, and he ends up staring at that exact same spot again. Cornered, he finally admits it. Her shirt's gone see-through from all the sweat. Mirai bolts, mortified in an instant. Once that whole mess gets sorted out, they get back to dancing, and after a while they call it quits. Both wiped out. Mirai mentions formal balls are way less frequent than dinners, but she thinks learning is still worth it. Itsuki agrees and even admits he had a blast. If he ever gets the chance, he'd love to dance in front of everyone someday. Mirai's tone shifts. She says things won't be able to move at this easy pace much longer. If her marriage gets confirmed, moments like these are done. She'll have to pour all her time into her husband, hand over her whole future to him. Itsuki deflates a little, admitting he's going to miss this. Today, once again, he realized just how much he loves doing things alongside Mirai, and it's brutal to think moments like this are running out. Mirai turns her face away and lets a soft smile slip. Itsuki calls out to her, and only then does she realize what she was doing. She jumps up right away, says her goodbyes, and hurries off. Back home, Mirai sweetens her tea while thinking about him. Moments like these are so sweet. She likes it so much she's already scheming up a way to keep him close. She even starts thinking about creating a position for Itsuki inside the Tennoji group, inviting him to join the company. But she catches herself right away. That's ridiculous. And, ugh, the tea's way too sweet now. Hanami comes over and asks if everything's okay with her daughter, seeing her sitting there smiling to herself, muttering at nothing. Hanami's happy to see Mirai having this much fun. She's noticed her daughter's been upbeat every single day since she started hanging around Itsuki. Curious, since, well, this is the guy who's clearly been influencing her precious daughter so much. She asks what kind of person he is. Mirai starts by describing what Itsuki was like when they first met. A kid with zero confidence, basically your textbook underdog who doesn't even believe in his own potential. Now he's got this massive drive to improve. In his studies, his etiquette, his dancing, he throws everything he's got into it, something genuinely admirable. And above all else, he always makes Mirai laugh. Hanami's glad her daughter has such a good friend. Mirai admits she'd love for things to keep going like this with him if possible, but she doesn't finish the sentence. Her chest tightens and she says, a little wistfully, that it'd be amazing if her future husband turned out to be someone like Itsuki. Hanami answers with the thing she always tells her daughter. She doesn't need to pressure herself into anything. Mirai's got this annoying habit of taking on way too much responsibility. Her mom insists she should feel free to choose, but Mirai cuts her off, saying there's nothing to worry about, that she's already living exactly the way she wants. Hanami breaks the news then. They're getting ready for a formal marriage meeting. Another dance lesson rolls around, and this one's a lot heavier than the last. The mood is thick, and Mirai's visibly on edge. She cuts the lesson short because she's got somewhere to be. It's about the marriage proposal. She's about to be formally introduced to her potential husband. Itsuki says it flat out. It's obvious she doesn't want to go through with this. Mirai pushes back, insisting she's looking at it positively, and adds that given her position, she doesn't feel like she can just say no. Itsuki presses on that, and since the topic's already open, Mirai decides to share something. The truth is, she's adopted. Tennoji blood doesn't run through her veins. Her parents took her in as a baby and have always treated her exactly like their own flesh and blood. That's exactly why she pushes herself so hard to carry herself like a true member of the family. She sees it as her duty, something she figures comes with the territory in a position like hers. Itsuki's visibly shaken. Mirai admits she knows this isn't exactly normal, but she figures he, more than anyone, can understand. In her mind, Itsuki's adopted too, and that's when it clicks for him. That's exactly what she asked when they first met, whether he was really the heir to a mid-sized company. She's thought that about him ever since. She says the two of them are alike, people who've dedicated themselves to the duty of honoring their family name. Itsuki can't deny it. He really does carry that weight, the burden of upholding a name. Except the name he's protecting is the Konohana name, and the difference is he's not adopted at all. He's staff. He can't tell Mirai the truth because that would break the promise he made to the Konohana family. So he just asks quietly for her to keep what she just said between them. Mirai figures her read on him was right all along, and that lands like a ton of bricks on Itsuki's chest. He walks away carrying that guilt with him. Back home, he sits down with Hinako for dinner, but spends a good chunk of it zoned out, somewhere else entirely. She snaps him back to reality by asking for a bite off his plate. Itsuki asks how long she's been studying every single day, and Hinako answers, from the moment school lets out until dinner time, and sometimes even longer than that. It's a lot of hours, and it's not even just schoolwork. She has to know everything about the Konohana group's business dealings, just to keep up with dinner table conversation. She admits studying is a total drag, turns her into a forced nerd, basically, no choice in the matter, and that family obligations can be suffocating sometimes. Hinako says, with a genuinely warm smile, that's exactly why having Itsuki around makes her so happy. Now she knows her life isn't just the Konohana family. After dinner, Itsuki stares out the window, wondering if Mirai knows that too, that life isn't just the family business. Meanwhile, across town, Mirai is sitting down at that very dinner where she's finally about to meet her intended. Ever since she was little, Mirai has been all about doing what's best for the Tennoji group, and right now she's on the hunt for a husband, but not for love, purely for what's best for her family. Mirai just got home from dinner with her intended match. She tells her mom the guy's a genuinely good person and, of course, sharp as a tack, which, honestly, was a given since her own parents handpicked him. Hanami's thrilled to hear it. Deep down, all she wants is for Mirai to be happy. But inside, something's bugging Mirai. The guy is just too perfect. It's not that anything's wrong with him, it's more like she won't have to teach him a single thing, won't have to worry about him at all. And for some reason, that just doesn't sit right with her. Catching that weird look on her daughter's face, Hanami asks, so how does Itsuki stack up against this guy? Mirai doesn't even hesitate. Itsuki's still got a mountain of stuff to work on. There's a whole checklist of things she needs to teach him. And she'd absolutely be a nervous wreck if he ever had to go to a business dinner solo, but that's exactly the point. Itsuki is everything Mirai's into. Hanami's curious now and asks what Itsuki's family does for work. Mirai says it's an IT company under the Konohana group. Hanami points out that for someone in that kind of position, he sure seems humble. Then Mirai drops another detail. Itsuki's actually adopted, and that's when a question pops into Hanami's head. Isn't that kind of odd? A company the size of the Konohana group having such a hard time finding an heir that they had to adopt a kid to take over? Hanami's never heard of anything like that. That conversation ends up cracking something open in Mirai's mind. Little by little, she starts second-guessing everything Itsuki's told her. On a normal morning, Itsuki and Hinako are walking to school like always, with him warning her, yet again, that sleepwalking is dangerous. Suddenly, Shizune points and shouts that there's an intruder. The guards take off after whoever it is, and one of them scoops Hinako straight into the car. Itsuki just stands there, totally lost, not understanding what's going on. The guards do a full sweep but come up with absolutely nothing. Turns out Shizune just felt some weird stare directed at her, and that's what set off her alarm bells. Maybe it was all in her head. But if she's right, whoever that intruder was, they're clearly a pro. Anyway, scare aside, it ends up being just another normal day, until Itsuki finds a letter in his locker at school. He stares at the envelope, figuring it's a love letter. But then again, surrounded by all these rich, good-looking people at this school, who's seriously going to have a crush on Itsuki? Even he can't answer that one. He finally works up the nerve to open it. And it's not a love letter at all. It's a duel challenge. He just stands there, confused. The letter tells him to show up at the dojo after class in his kendo uniform. Looking closer at the handwriting, he immediately knows who it's from. After class, he does exactly what the letter said and heads to the dojo. And, just as he figured, Mirei's waiting for him there. She gets straight to it. Hasn't Itsuki been telling a few little lies lately? He looks away and says he has no idea what she's talking about. That's when Mirei pulls out a photo, Itsuki with Hinako, and asks him to explain exactly what that means. One of her people snapped it that very morning, which means Shizune was right all along. Itsuki scrambles for an excuse on the spot, but Mirei's not buying it. She asks who he spent lunch with and where, since she saw him heading off to some secluded spot with Hinako. Itsuki just goes quiet. Given all that, Mirei jumps to her own conclusion. Itsuki's been cheating on her. He tries to explain that it was never like that, but Mirei's done talking. She just wants the two of them to fight, right now. She's consumed by anger and needs to let it out on something. She comes at him full force, her heart completely shattered. She thinks he's just been playing her this whole time, and even a tough girl like Mirei can't hold back the tears in the face of betrayal. Itsuki tries to convince her that he was only getting help from the Konohana family, and that everything they'd shared together was completely genuine. Mirei says she doesn't believe a single word and lunges at him with everything she's got. But Itsuki catches her blows barehanded and keeps repeating, every moment was real. With no other way out, he finally tells her the truth, the whole truth. He's Hinako's caretaker. He does leave out one little detail though, her dorky side. Mirei believes him. As hard as it is to swallow, some pieces finally click into place. And with all that sinking in, she calls Itsuki a scumbag, and says it twice, just to really drive it home. With total formality, Itsuki bows and admits she's right. Except Mirei can't stand that kind of act, because she knows it's not sincere. So she asks for one thing, that Itsuki swear, right there, that he'll never lie to her again. Not in words, not in actions. If he keeps that promise, she'll forgive him. And from now on, if there's ever something Itsuki can't tell her, he should just say so, instead of lying. And the same goes for Mirei. Itsuki swears he'll never lie to Mirei again, and Mirei promises the same right back. She lets out, a little awkwardly, that he hasn't stopped surprising her since the day they met. And with that, she starts crying. Now, the two of them finally head home, but Itsuki's still worried. He's going to have to tell Shizune about all of this. Mirei catches the look on his face and asks if something's wrong. Itsuki says he might have to leave the institute, since he just spilled the truth to someone on the outside. When he gets home, Shizune's there to greet him. He tells her he needs to talk to her about something, and small world, Shizune's got something to say too. Itsuki lays it all out, bracing himself for whatever happens next. Except what Shizune tells him is nothing like what he expected. Just a little while ago, she got a call from Mirei herself. Mirei practically begged her not to have Itsuki removed from the institute, explaining that she'd lost her temper and that none of this was his fault. Shizune knows exactly who Mirei is, someone with real honor, and Mirei promised she wouldn't breathe a word of any of this to anyone. Mr. Chai. Kagan will obviously find out eventually, but with the heir to the Tennoji group herself making the request, there's no way the Konohana family can easily say no. Anyway, Shizune tells Hinako to quit hiding already. Hinako comes out, worried about Itsuki, but the second Shizune assures her that nothing bad's going to happen to him, Hinako plants a solid kick right on his foot. She starts firing off questions, and Itsuki tells her he's decided he's never going to lie to Mirei again, because she trusts him, and he trusts her. But every single word out of Itsuki's mouth just seems to crank up the frustration building inside Hinako. Finally, to let off some steam, she blurts out, "Itsuki, you dork," and storms off without another word. Itsuki's scared he really hurt her feelings, but Shizune assures him that's not quite it. The next day, Itsuki runs into Mirei, and all formal thanks her for what she did the day before. She's not into all that stiffness and tells him to say it again, but this time, natural. He does, and takes a seat. That's when Mirei decides it's time to level up how close they are. She suggests they start using each other's first names. Itsuki's completely caught off guard. Mirei tells him to feel honored, and she's the first to go for it, saying his first name out loud. But when Itsuki does the same right back, she can't handle the pressure and turns bright red. Knowing her heart can't take it, she ends up asking him to just go back to using her last name after all. Switching gears, Mirei has officially become a full-on stalker. She spends the entire morning watching Itsuki and admits, yeah, he really does act like Hinako's caretaker, always keeping an eye on her, nice and low-key. Mirei hangs her head and mutters that Hinako's got it made, and she admits it flat out. She's jealous. Curious, she starts grilling him about what the two of them do at lunch, since they're always sneaking off somewhere. Itsuki thinks back to the warmth he feels for Hinako in those moments, and decides not to answer. All Mirei wants to know is, they're not doing anything they shouldn't be, right? Itsuki almost says no without a second thought. But then he remembers Hinako curled up with her head in his lap, and suddenly he's not so sure if that counts as something they shouldn't. To Mirai, that's already way beyond a normal employer-employee thing, and she trusts her gut completely on this one. Itsuki admits it, yeah, they're closer than a typical boss and employee. Mirai slams her hands on the table and fires off. Closer how exactly? He explains. They chat about random, easy stuff, eat meals together, and sometimes he pats her head. Mirai is not here for that, because the one thing Itsuki does with Hinako that he's never once done with her is exactly that, the head pat. But Mirai refuses to fall behind. She demands a head pat too, and the second Itsuki finally goes for it, her heart just can't take it. It's too much for her. During class, Mirai dumps a mountain of assignments on Itsuki, all due in barely any time at all. Today, she is showing zero mercy, full stop. Dance class is the same story, pure discipline, start to finish. Mirai lays it out plain. She's not going easy on a scumbag, and Itsuki honestly doesn't even know what to say anymore. The next day, Itsuki's friends notice he looks absolutely wrecked, totally drained. And on top of that, they've heard some rumors floating around. Apparently, he's been doing lessons with Mirai every single day. They tell him he needs to blow off some steam before he becomes a lost cause. During study time, Mirai shows up looking down, visibly sad. Itsuki clocks it immediately. It's also the day of their last dance lesson. Mirai's about to throw herself fully into studying, and dance is going to have to take a back seat, at least for now. The two of them sit down to talk, and Mirai mentions that Itsuki picks things up insanely fast, stuff that would take most people days to learn, he nails in a single day. She lets it slip, almost without thinking. She likes people like that, people like Itsuki. Realizing how that sounded, she quickly tries to walk it back, saying she just admires him, that's all, as a person. I mean, what else could it be, right? But once again, that sad look creeps back over Mirai's face. She decides to just say it. The person she might end up marrying lives far away, and if the marriage actually happens, she'll have to move and leave the institute for good. Mirai says there's no way around it. It's already baked into the terms of the marriage proposal itself. With a smile that's clearly forced, she adds, that's exactly why she's been throwing herself so hard into her studies. This might be her last shot at beating Hinako. Right then, Itsuki notices the difference between Mirai and every other girl. She's the only one who can't bring herself to ask for help. Mirai asks him not to feel sad for her, because she's going to keep being cheerful always, as long as it's for the good of the Tennoji family. Itsuki asks if she really means that, but changes his mind mid-sentence and asks something else instead. Do you actually see anything good coming out of this marriage? Mirai just says she'd rather not answer that. The next day, Itsuki asks Mirai to take a day off with him since they don't have class. He wants to show her how regular people actually have fun, for real. And Mirai is interested. With a huge smile, she says she'd love to.